Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine you're standing right on the corner of King Street here in Boone, looking at all the businesses around you. You know, the restaurants, the hair salons, the financial advisors. They're all offering something incredibly valuable, but it's often something you can't actually hold in your hand. Today, we're doing a deep dive into Chapter 13 of your Principles of Marketing textbook from Crichton Farrell. Yeah, the whole world of services marketing. And this deep dive, it's really custom tailored for you, Appalachian State College of Business juniors. Think of it as a shortcut to getting, really well informed on this crucial topic. Our mission: simple. Pull out the most important nuggets, the surprising facts, the real world insights from your course material, the case studies. Make these concepts really click for your future careers, whatever you end up doing.
And what's truly fascinating here is just how completely pervasive services are in our economy. It's everywhere. Understanding how to market them effectively isn't like a niche skill anymore. It's absolutely fundamental. If we connect this to the bigger picture, I mean, services represent a massive portion of the GDP in developed nations like the US. We're talking around, what, 70%? This isn't just theory from the textbook. This is the actual economic landscape you'll be navigating as business professionals. More than half of all new businesses starting up in the U.S., they're service businesses. And that growth, it's only expected to continue. You'll be part of this shift.
70%. Wow. That's
Right.
almost hard to wrap your head around. It makes me wonder, though, if it's so different from, say, buying a new phone, then what is a service exactly? How do we define it?
That's a great question. So, at its heart, a service is fundamentally an intangible product. Think of it not as something you can hold, but as a deed, maybe a performance or an effort that's delivered to you. Unlike that phone, you can't physically possess it. It's usually delivered through human effort, maybe mechanical efforts, directed at people or sometimes objects. And while a service might use tangible things like, tools at a mechanic or equipment in a gym, the core difference is that the intangible part really dominates the total product.
Okay, so it's not the physical stuff, but the experience or the action itself. Your textbook illustrates this really well with that tangibility continuum. That's figure 13.1. On one end, you've got pure goods, like sugar. On the other, pure services, like education or maybe ad agency services. Where does something like a restaurant dining experience fit in? Because you get food, which is tangible, but you also get the whole experience.
Yeah, a restaurant dining experience, that falls right smack in the middle, actually. It's a true blend. You have the tangible goods, the food, the silverware, the chairs, the atmosphere, but the service itself, that dining experience, the wait-staff interaction, the ambiance, that's the intangible part. You can't take the dining experience home in a bag, right? It's just the leftovers. This continuum, it highlights something crucial. Even goods often have service elements. Think about customer support for your phone. And services often have tangible components like the comfy chairs in a salon. It's rarely just black and white.
Right, right. And you mentioned the U.S. being the world's first serviced economy. That 70% of GDP figure is just staggering. What's the biggest factor you see driving that growth? Is it just the economy growing, or is it something more fundamental about how we live now, especially for you App State students heading into the workforce?
It's definitely a mix, but if I had to point to a core driver, I'd say it's lifestyle changes and the increasing complexity of modern life. Sustained economic growth means people have more disposable income, sure, but they're also more willing to pay others for time-saving tasks. Think about meal delivery services right here on campus, or lawn care for people with demanding jobs. People are just busier, more specialized, so they outsource more tasks. And the business environment itself, it's gotten incredibly complex. That leads to more demand for specialized business services, consulting, IT support, legal work, all that stuff. We're even seeing things like home sourcing, where customer contact jobs like call centers are outsourced right into workers' homes. It's changing how companies operate.
Home sourcing, huh? That's fascinating. And it's important to clarify here, we're talking about services as products, the main thing being sold, not just good old customer service, right?
Yeah.
Because they can feel kind of similar sometimes.
Absolutely. That's a really crucial distinction for you to grasp. Customer service is an activity that adds value to a core product. And that core product could be a good or a service. For instance, La Quinta's 100% satisfaction guarantee, that isn't a service product you buy separately, but it is an example of exceptional customer service that really enhances the whole experience of their core lodging service. It boosts the offering. It's not the offering itself.
Okay, that makes sense. So that sets the stage for what a service is. But if it's so different from a physical product, how on earth do you even begin to market it effectively?
Yeah.
This seems like where the unique The unique DNA of services comes into play, sets a whole new set of rules.
Precisely. There are 6 key characteristics that really set services apart from goods. And understanding each one is critical because they each pose specific marketing challenges, but also create unique opportunities if you know how to leverage them.
Right, let's break them down then. First up is intangibility. What does that truly mean for marketers? Selling something you can't touch or see.
Right. Intangibility. Imagine trying to evaluate a financial consultation before you get it, or judging legal defense beforehand. You can't see it, touch it, taste it, smell it. That's intangibility. Services just can't be perceived directly by the senses. And that's a huge challenge because you can't really try before you buy. So customers often have to rely heavily on other things: the brand image, the provider's reputation, maybe even the physical look of the place. Those become the tangible cues about the nature and quality of the service. It makes building trust and a strong reputation incredibly vital.
Reading about Winslow, Arizona in the case study materials, how they built a whole park around just a song lyric, that seems like such a brilliant way to tackle intangibility. Made it click for me.
Oh, it really is a masterclass in making the intangible, well, tangible. Winslow, this small town, almost a ghost town after Route 66 traffic died down, completely revitalized itself. How? By capitalizing on an intangible asset it's mentioned in that Eagles song, Take It Easy. Specifically that line, "I was standing on the corner in Winslow, Arizona." So the town literally created the Standin' on the Corner Park. They used the song lyrics, that Route 66 nostalgia, to build a tangible experience around something completely intangible. A cultural reference, a feeling. It just proves you can market a feeling or a memory.
That's incredible, but it brings up a point.
Yeah.
How much creativity can marketers really have when so much depends on the person delivering the service, face to face? Which kind of leads us to the next one, right? Inseparability of production and consumption.
Exactly. This characteristic means the service is produced and consumed at the same time, simultaneously. The customer isn't just passively receiving something, they're often an active part of the process itself. Think about getting a haircut right here in Boone, or visiting an App State academic advisor, or going to a live concert. You're right there, participating as it happens. This means there's a shared responsibility between the provider and you, the customer. Service employees really need to get how crucial the customer is in that moment of delivery, because the customer directly influences the outcome.
Okay, so the customer's involved, they can't take the service home. What's the next big headache for service providers? I'm guessing it involves time, because if that 7 p.m. table at a restaurant on King Street is empty, that revenue's just gone forever, right? Sounds like perishability.
You've nailed it. That's a critical point. Perishability means unused service capacity just cannot be stored for future use. It vanishes. Once a time slot passes, like that restaurant table or a hotel room for the night or an airline seat, the opportunity to sell that specific service is gone. Forever. A half-empty plane. That's lost income you can't recover by putting that seat in tomorrow's inventory. The core insight with perishability isn't just about storing things. It fundamentally shifts the challenge from inventory management, like with goods, to capacity management for services. This forces businesses to be incredibly agile. Think dynamic pricing, demand forecasting. It's like playing a real-time puzzle to maximize every single time slot.
Wow, yeah. That makes balancing supply and demand incredibly tricky. And when you add the human element, it must be even tougher to keep things consistent day to day. How about heterogeneity, that variation in quality?
Oh, heterogeneity is a big one, especially for services that rely heavily on people labor-intensive services. It means services often vary in quality, even within the same company, or sometimes even delivered by the same person on different days. You've experienced this, right? You go to your favorite local coffee shop, one day the barista nails it, the next day, maybe not so much. Or that restaurant example. Fantastic one night, food overcooked, and service slow the next. That's heterogeneity in action, the solution. It really lies heavily in consistent employee training, having standardized procedures, and sometimes using technology to try and mitigate that variability, deliver a more consistent experience.
Okay. Then we have client-based relationships. For you App State juniors listening, this sounds like it's all about building trust for the long haul.
Exactly right. Client-based relationships are interactions aimed at creating satisfied customers who use a service repeatedly over time, building that loyalty. It's why many service providers call their customers clients. They want to emphasize that long-term relationship. And word of mouth, or, going viral online these days, is a huge factor here. Think about the local Boone businesses you go back to again and again while you're here, your favorite study spot cafe, maybe a reliable local mechanic. What keeps you loyal? It's usually that consistent quality and the relationship you build over time. You see companies like Wendy's actively using social media to build these kinds of relationships with their kind of quirky, engaging style.
Makes sense. And finally, the sixth one, customer contact. This
Right.
must be absolutely vital for perceived service quality.
Totally vital. Customer contact refers to the level of interaction needed between the provider and the customer to actually deliver the service. You have high contact services, think healthcare, legal services, even getting academic advising here at App State where the customer is deeply involved, present, interacting a lot. Then you have low contact services, like maybe online tax prep or dry cleaning drop off. For those high contact services, the employees are just absolutely critical for customer satisfaction. It's been shown if the employee is satisfied and empowered, it directly translates to satisfied customers. So organizations have to train them well, empower them to make decisions, fix problems on the spot, and reward them for being customer focused. They are, quite literally, the face of the service.
Yeah, you think about the level of customer contact you experience right here at App State, maybe interacting with career services or Res Life staff. The Four Seasons hotel chain is like the ultimate example, right? Building their whole reputation on hyper-personalized service. That 15-minute room service menu, meals packed for the airport. It shows that intense focus needed on every single interaction.
And it's not just luxury hotels. Think about a sports team, like the St. Louis Cardinals example in your text. They focus intensely on managing the entire fan experience at the stadium. They know every interaction from the ticket taker to the food vendors to the ushers contributes to the overall memory of the game. That influences loyalty, sometimes even more than whether the team actually wins or loses that day. It's all about managing that moment of contact.
Okay, so this is where it gets really interesting, I think. How do these unique characteristics, intangibility, perishability, all six of them, how do they fundamentally change the traditional marketing mix? You know, the four Ps: product, distribution, place, promotion, and price.
Yeah.
But we're talking services, it seems like it flips everything on its head.
It absolutely does. Those unique characteristics mean the traditional 4Ps need significant adaptation, sometimes a complete rethink. Let's start with development of services. That's your product P. A service isn't just one thing. It's essentially a bundle. You've got the core service, the basic thing the customer expects, like basic transportation on an airline or just getting your clothes clean at the dry cleaner. Then you layer on supplementary services. These are used to differentiate your offering from competitors, maybe premium airport lounges, in-flight Wi-Fi, or express service at the cleaners. Think about different seating options on Apple Cart even. Now, heterogeneity, that variability, actually allows for customization, which can be a great competitive advantage, but it also creates that constant challenge. How do you provide high quality efficiently when every interaction can be different? And because of intangibility, remember, marketers aren't selling a physical thing, they're selling promises. So they rely heavily on tangible cues, things like well-groomed staff, clean facilities, a professional-looking website to give customers confidence about the quality before they even experience the service.
Right. So if you're a restaurant here in Boone, maybe one of those build-your-own-bowl places, letting customers pick their ingredients, that's an example of customers taking part in the production.
Yeah.
Right. It connects the product to the experience, tying into that inseparability.
Precisely. Good example. Now let's look at distribution of services or place. Channels are usually short and direct. Why? Because production and consumption are often inseparable, happening at the same time and place. Inventory management becomes absolutely critical for balancing supply and demand. Again, you can't store that vacant hotel room or unsold concert ticket. So businesses use tools like appointments, reservations, maybe multiple service locations, or even just bringing in more service providers during peak times to manage this flow. Some service providers are also replacing contact personnel with technology, think ATMs instead of tellers, or online check-in to cut costs and increase accessibility 24/7. But the trade-off can be a loss of personalization.
That's where you see things like DoorDash or Grubhub delivering restaurant meals, right? Third-party intermediaries. Or consider that FedEx strategy mentioned in the book. They bought Kinko's, rebranded it FedEx Office, and partnered with Walgreens and Kroger for convenient drop-off and pickup. That's a really creative distribution channel for a service. But it does raise an important question for you students to think about. What are the customer contact pros and cons when FedEx relies on those third-party retailers? It feels like a definite trade-off.
Oh, it's a clear trade-off, absolutely. The big pro, greatly enhanced convenience and accessibility for customers. Longer hours, way more locations, especially helpful for busy students, right? But the con is just as clear. FedEx has much less direct control over the training, the performance, the attitude of those third-party employees. A Walgreens or a Kroger employee probably isn't going to provide the same specialized, maybe efficient or even friendly service as a dedicated FedEx employee who only does shipping. So that directly impacts the customer contact experience and potentially how customers perceive the overall service quality. It's a calculated risk they take for the sake of massive convenience.
Okay, moving on to promotion of services. How do you advertise something you literally can't show someone? Seems like a huge hurdle.
It is difficult, no doubt. How do you visually depict something intangible like financial advice? So, service promotion typically relies heavily, again, on tangible cues. You use photos of your nice facilities, your modern equipment, your smiling, professional looking staff. You also use very concrete language in your ads to make the service benefits clearer, more understandable. And crucially, marketers must avoid overpromising. Setting unrealistic expectations is a recipe for disaster because customer expectations are so central to judging service quality. So providers promote things like price, guarantees, maybe performance documentation like customer testimonials, availability, and the training or certifications of their staff. Personal selling, even indirectly by the contact staff just doing their jobs well, is absolutely vital. And because of that heterogeneity and intangibility, word of mouth communication is just incredibly important for services. Think about how services like Zelle or even budget airlines like Spirit promote themselves, often focusing on concrete benefits and relying on social proof or buzz. What your friends tell you about a great local service provider here in Boone is often way more powerful than any fancy ad campaign.
Yeah, absolutely. And finally, the fourth P, pricing of services. This often feels like a bit of a black box, especially for things like legal advice or therapy, where the value isn't immediately obvious.
Right. Pricing for services needs to consider a few things: consumer price sensitivity, how much will people pay, the nature of the transaction itself, and of course, the costs involved. Pricing can be based on specific tasks performed, like fixing one thing on a car, hourly rates, like for a consultant or lawyer, or increasingly common demand-based pricing. That means charging higher prices during peak demand times, think airline tickets during holidays, or maybe surge pricing for ride shares on a busy weekend night. And conversely, using lower off-peak pricing to try and boost demand during slower periods like matinee movie tickets or happy hour specials. And because services are intangible, customers often use price as an indicator of quality, especially when the service is hard to judge beforehand. A higher price can signal higher quality, rightly or wrongly. Think about choosing between two lawyers with vastly different hourly rates. You might assume the more expensive one is better, right? Though, of course, market conditions and sometimes government regulations can limit how flexible companies can be with their pricing.
That pricing the intangible discussion starter in your materials really gets at this. How do psychologists or psychiatrists set prices when you can't evaluate the service immediately? Or looking at the examples of the city of San Francisco using variable parking meter rates, that restaurant Bob Richard, TV streaming services with different tiers. They all show different ways to price services, from fixed fees to complex demand-based models. It's a really complex equation.
It truly is. It often comes down to perceived value just as much as, if not more than, the actual cost of delivery.
So, okay, given all these unique characteristics, these marketing mix challenges,
Yeah.
what does it all mean for actually delivering quality?
Yeah.
In services, quality feels paramount because it's so personal, so immediate. One bad experience can ruin everything.
It absolutely is paramount. Service quality is defined simply as customers' perception of how well a service meets or exceeds their expectations. And the key phrase there is customer's perception. It's always judged from the customer's point of view, not the company's. Now, it's inherently tough for customers to judge service quality beforehand because services have very few search qualities. Search qualities are those tangible attributes you can easily evaluate before you buy, like the color, style, or fit of a shirt, or the features on a new car during a test drive. You can't really search the quality of a legal consultation before you actually have it.
Okay, so if they can't rely much on search qualities, what do customers use to judge that crucial service quality?
They primarily rely on two other types of qualities. First, experience qualities. These are attributes you can only judge during or after you consume the service. Think about the taste of the food at that local restaurant on King Street, or how satisfied you feel after a workout at the App State Rec Center. You have to experience it to judge it. And then, perhaps most critically for many professional services, credence qualities. These are attributes that consumers find difficult or maybe even impossible to evaluate even after they've purchased and consumed the service, usually because they lack the knowledge or expertise. Think about how well your car mechanic really fixed that internal engine issue. The car runs, but was it the best possible repair? Or the true long-term effectiveness of legal advice or medical treatment. This is precisely why reputation, professional certifications, strong recommendations, and building trust are so incredibly crucial for services high in credence qualities. You're essentially relying on faith in the provider's expertise.
Okay, that makes sense. So, if Deirdre hires a lawyer based on his great reputation because she doesn't know much about law, that's using credence qualities. If Carlos test drives a Ford Fusion and decides not to buy it because he didn't like the handling, that's based on search qualities. And if Linda picks a mechanic based on online reviews and just assumes they did a good job if her car runs okay afterward, she's also relying mainly on credence qualities.
You've absolutely got it. And those other examples, Vincent recommending the local diner because the food tasted great, experience, or Bianca having a fantastic time at Disney World, an experience they fit perfectly. Now, despite these evaluation challenges, service quality is often the only real way customers can differentiate between competing service providers. Research has boiled it down to 5 key components or dimensions customers use. Tangibles, the physical evidence, like a clean, modern doctor's office, professional-looking brochures, well-attired staff. Reliability, consistency, and dependability. Does the service do what it promised? Accurate billing, on-time flights, repairs done right the first time. This is often the most important dimension. Responsiveness, the willingness to help customers promptly. Returning calls quickly, handling requests efficiently, resolving problems fast. Assurance, the knowledge and courtesy of employees, and their ability to inspire trust and confidence. Think of a skilled financial advisor or just a reputable company you trust. And empathy, the caring, individualized attention the company provides its customers. Like a nurse really listening to a patient's fears or a service rep going the extra mile.
Providing that consistently high quality across all those dimensions must be incredibly difficult, especially with that heterogeneity, the human variability we talked about earlier. Feels like a constant uphill battle.
It is a constant challenge, but successful organizations don't leave it to chance, they actively manage it. There are 4 key factors for delivering exceptional service quality consistently. First, analysis of customer expectations. You have to understand what your customers actually expect. What's their desired level of service? What's their acceptable level? This zone of tolerance between desired and acceptable is crucial. You learn this through direct interaction, surveys, focus groups, analyzing feedback, basically, good marketing research.
Okay, understand expectations. What's next?
Second is service quality specifications. Once you know what customers expect, you need to translate that into clear, measurable goals for service delivery. These goals might be tied to employee performance standards, like answer the phone within 3 rings, or machine performance, like ATM uptime. Management commitment is absolutely key here. Quality needs to be a top priority throughout the organization.
Got it. And third is employee performance. This seems so critical, yet maybe sometimes overlooked.
It's absolutely critical, maybe the most critical link. There's a very direct, proven relationship between satisfied, motivated employees and satisfied, loyal customers, especially in high-contact services. Yet often, customer contact employees in service industries are among the least trained and lowest paid, even though they are the company to the customer. So organizations that excel at service quality invest heavily here. They must provide adequate training, empower employees to make decisions to solve customer problems right then and there, and reward them for customer-oriented behavior. They are the front line making or breaking your service quality.
Makes total sense. Finally, the fourth factor, management of service expectations. This sounds like where marketing communications really meets reality.
Exactly. This means setting realistic expectations through your advertising, your sales pitches, all your external communication. You simply cannot overpromise and underdeliver in services. Why? Because customer expectations are the benchmark against which they judge the actual service received. If you set expectations too high, you're setting yourself up for failure, even if the service was objectively decent. And remember this statistic. Customers are roughly 2 times more likely to tell others about a bad service experience than a good one. Ouch. So while advertising helps set initial expectations, the absolute best way to ensure positive word of mouth, which is invaluable marketing, is to consistently deliver exceptional service quality that meets or ideally exceeds those realistic expectations. That's the sustainable differentiator.
Okay, we've really dug into the world of for-profit services, but what happens when the bottom line isn't about profit at all? That brings us to a really fascinating and important area for you as future business leaders, nonprofit marketing. It's crucial to understand that marketing tools and concepts aren't just for companies chasing market share or ROI.
Exactly. Nonprofit marketing encompasses all those activities conducted by individuals and organizations to achieve goals other than typical business profits, market share, or return on investment. It generally falls into two broad categories. First, nonprofit organization marketing. This is marketing done by organizations whose primary goals aren't profit-driven. Think educational institutions like App State itself, charities, hospitals, government agencies. And second, social marketing. This specifically focuses on promoting social causes, ideas, or behaviors. Things like campaigns against smoking, encouraging recycling, promoting AIDS research, or safe driving habits.
So how does nonprofit marketing fundamentally differ from the for-profit world we've been discussing? I imagine some challenges like intangibility might be even more pronounced.
They certainly can be. There are key differences. In for-profit, the owners or shareholders are the main beneficiaries. In nonprofit, the beneficiaries are usually the clients being served, the members, or the public at large. Nonprofits often have, interestingly, more opportunities for creativity in their marketing, sometimes dealing with really emotional or abstract concepts. But it can also be harder to objectively evaluate the performance of the marketing professionals involved because the return isn't easily measured in dollars. The ultimate goal isn't profit, it's achieving the mission. And sometimes the marketing itself can be controversial depending on the nature of the cause being promoted. The basic aim, though, is similar in concept. Obtain a desired response, like donations, volunteering, changing behavior using a service, from a specific target market by offering something that meets their perceived needs and wants. And yes, you're right, when the product is something as abstract as hope, education, or environmental responsibility, the challenge of intangibility becomes even more significant. Nonprofits often have to rely even more heavily on strong, tangible cues, compelling stories, powerful images, statistics showing impact, celebrity endorsements to make their abstract product feel real and urgent.
And they talk about their target markets a bit differently too, using the term publics, right?
Yes, that's common terminology. They refer to target publics. These are essentially collectives of individuals who have some interest in or concern about the nonprofit organization, its services, or its social cause. Within that, you often distinguish between client publics, who are the direct consumers or beneficiaries of the nonprofit's product, for example. The students actually attending App State are its primary client public. And then general publics, who are more indirect consumers or supporters, like taxpayers who benefit from a state park promoted by a conservation nonprofit, or the community benefiting from a public health initiative.
Okay, so how does the marketing mix, the 4Ps, adapt specifically for these nonprofits, starting with their product?
For nonprofits, as we touched on, the product is often an idea, like Don't Litter, or a service, like education, healthcare, counseling. These are inherently more abstract and intangible to market compared to, say, a new smartphone. Marketing the idea of getting an education or the benefit of supporting a specific social cause like clean water requires a different approach than marketing tangible goods. It's often about selling an abstract benefit or a change in perspective.
And distribution. How on earth do you distribute an idea?
Yeah, distribution or place decisions relate to how these ideas or services are made available and accessible to the target clients or publics. Like many other services, the channels are often short and direct. The service provider interacts directly with the client, like a university delivering classes. If the product is primarily an idea, then media selection becomes a key part of distribution, choosing the right channels, TV, radio, social media, billboards, to get the public service announcement or campaign message out to the target audience effectively.
Makes sense. What about promotion for nonprofits?
Promotion is huge for nonprofits. They use advertising, often public service announcements, PSAs, if media time space is donated, publicity and public relations to generate awareness and support, and direct mail is still very common, especially for fundraising appeals. Increasingly, of course, the internet is vital email marketing, websites with information and donation portals, social media campaigns to engage supporters and spread the word. And personal selling is definitely used, though it might be called volunteer recruitment or major donor fundraising. Those face-to-face interactions are crucial for securing significant support or commitment.
And finally, pricing for nonprofits. This seems particularly complex, especially when many services might be free or heavily subsidized.
It is complex. Nonprofit pricing, if it exists, can take several forms. It might involve a fixed fee, like museum admission. It could be variable pricing based on the user's ability to pay, like sliding scale counseling fees. Or often there's no direct financial price charged to the recipient at all, like for many public health services or disaster relief efforts. In these cases, the concept of opportunity cost becomes really important. For volunteers, the price they pay is the value of the time and effort they donate, time they could have spent doing something else. For donors, it's the money they give up. And importantly, nonprofit pricing strategies are usually driven by factors other than just covering costs or maximizing revenue. They often prioritize things like public welfare, accessibility, or achieving the social mission, even if it means operating at a financial loss covered by donations or grants.
So, thinking about that comparison, the U.S. Postal Service, technically a nonprofit establishment mandated to serve everyone, versus FedEx, a for-profit company focused on specific segments and profit. Their marketing objectives, their target markets, their pricing strategies, they're fundamentally different because their core missions are different. USPS aims for universal service, FedEx for profitable delivery. It really highlights the distinction.
Absolutely. It's a perfect example, and you can apply this thinking right here. Consider marketing App State itself. What are the complex marketing decisions involved in defining its product? The mix of academic programs, the campus experience, research opportunities, career outcomes. How does it handle promotion to attract the right students, faculty, and donors? How does it manage distribution or availability on the main campus, online programs, extension sites? And how does it set tuition and fees the price? It's a prime, real-world example of complex service and nonprofit marketing happening right here in your backyard, affecting your daily life as a student.
Wow. We've really unpacked a lot today about the world of services, from understanding their unique characteristics like intangibility and perishability, to seeing how you have to adapt your entire marketing mix to succeed in this space. And we even explored that distinct realm of nonprofit marketing. Understanding these differences is not just academic stuff for an exam. It feels absolutely essential for anyone entering the business world today, since services are such a huge part of it.
And if we connect this back to the bigger picture for you, specifically as App State juniors thinking about your next steps, consider your own education and your upcoming career. How can you apply these very principles of services marketing to managing your own personal brand? Think about it. Your education here at App State is, in many ways, a service you're currently acquiring, and one you'll soon be offering to potential employers. So how do you make that service, your skills, your knowledge, your potential tangible to a recruiter or a hiring manager? How will you ensure your service quality, meaning your skills, your professionalism, your work ethic, meets, or better yet, exceeds their expectations? It raises a really important practical question for you to ponder. What tangible cues will you use to effectively market yourself when you walk into that job interview? What will make them choose you?
That's a great final thought. Definitely keep those questions in mind as you continue your studies here and start thinking seriously about your future paths. This understanding of services marketing, it really will serve you well no matter what industry or role you land in. Thanks so much for joining us on this deep dive.